Every now and then, the universe serves up some situations that seem so unlikely, so improbable, it's almost hard to believe they actually occurred. I'm talking about the kind of unbelievable coincidences that'll make the most logical person start to believe in fate. So today we'll be checking out some wild glitches in the Matrix, birds with picture-perfect timing, and some folks who encountered their own inanimate doppelgangers as we explore some one-in-a-million coincidences that'll blow your mind. Till tides do us part. When you get married, you give your partner a wedding ring. The jewelry is meant to symbolize a bond of love and commitment that'll last a lifetime. Unfortunately, people lose their wedding rings all the time, and this supposedly everlasting symbolic bond can be broken by something as simple as a trip to the beach. Back in 2021, a woman called Susan Pryor found this out firsthand after discovering a lost wedding ring wrapped around the body of a small mullet fish while snorkeling off Norfolk Island, Australia. Susan was shocked by her discovery, and as she snapped a photo of the fish and returned to the surface, she recalled a Facebook post that she happened to have read earlier that year about a man who lost his wedding ring in the area. In the post, local man Nathan Reeves explained that his ring had slipped off his finger while swimming there and sunk to the seabed. Nathan attempted to dive down and find the jewelry to no avail. Turned out, unfortunately for him, the area is populated by mullet fish. These critters feed by pushing their bodies through the seafloor and eating any small crustaceans hiding in the sand. As one particular mullet fish pushed through the sand to find its dinner, it inadvertently pulled off a jewel heist as it seemingly swam into the ring and got trapped, stealing Nathan's jewelry. When Susan refound Nathan's original Facebook post, she messaged him about the ring's whereabouts, and she has since made several trips back to Norfolk Island to try and catch the ringed fish. Unfortunately, she's been unsuccessful thus far. And as far as she knows, Nathan's ring is still stuck around the mullet, leaving him with a naked finger and an eternal bond with a fish. Talk about an odd couple. A-lister sister. They say you should never meet your heroes, but there are cases of people forming close relationships with their favorite celebrities after meeting them, or, in one case, becoming family members with their childhood idols, and not through marriage either. Let me explain. In 1987, a girl called Jennifer was born without any legs, a sad affliction which, even sadder, prompted her birth parents to give her up for adoption. Jennifer's adoptive parents gave her a great upbringing, and despite her disability, she developed a passion for gymnastics, a love that was inspired by her favorite athlete, Dominique Moceanu. Dominique was a teenage prodigy who competed for Team USA at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, and Jennifer used to watch all of her events religiously, lining the walls of her bedroom with the gymnasts' posters. Dominique even inspired Jennifer to compete in events against able-bodied gymnasts, and in 1998, Jennifer competed in the USA Amateur Athletic Union's Junior Olympics, placing 4th despite her disability. With a loving family and a passion for gymnastics, Jennifer had a happy childhood, allowing her biological family to slip from her mind. That was until 2003, when she was shown her adoption papers. As Jennifer started to skim through the papers and read about her birth parents, she came across a familiar surname, Moceanu. A little further digging, and Jennifer uncovered something unbelievable. Her hero was actually her long-lost sister. They'd been born to the same parents, but only the firstborn, Dominique, had been raised by them. Like every good gymnast, Jennifer started to flip out, before spending the next 4 years trying to pluck up the courage to contact Dominique and explain the situation. Eventually, Jennifer wrote her idol a letter, and incredibly, Dominique immediately wrote back to her, asking to meet up and have a conversation face-to-face. Dominique and Jennifer immediately hit it off, noting similarities in their looks, mannerisms, and of course, their passion for gymnastics. Since meeting in 2008, the long-lost sisters have formed a close relationship, and today they regularly meet up, spending time with each other's families. What an inspiring story. I wonder if I'm related to my childhood idol. Me and the Michelin Man do look pretty similar. Doppelganger dads. Every father's coffee cup collection claims that they're the best dad in the world. But the similarities between dads go much further than that, with the average dad featuring the exact same blend of cargo shorts, receding hairlines, and terrible puns. Some dads are so similar, in fact, that they're virtually indistinguishable. And in 2022, a TikToker called Andrea Holland proved it, after discovering two identical dads while on vacation. As Andrea chilled at her hotel, she spotted a glitch in the matrix, spying two identical men walking up a set of stairs. The fellows, who, it's fair to say, certainly looked like dads at least, both sported bald spots, shorts, and sweaty blue t-shirts. They even seemed to move in sync. And although they're one floor apart in the video, I think they need to keep even more distance from each other. If their kids accidentally run into their dad's doppelgangers, they might end up going home with the wrong parent. Modern-day muses. Let's move from those sweaty dads to some slightly classier doppelgangers. Back in 2012, Max Scalupo from New Jersey was soaking in some culture at the Philadelphia Museum of Art when he walked past a 14th century painting called Portrait of a Nobleman with a Dueling Gauntlet. The museum has tons of old portraits, but this one stood out to Max because as he stared at the 500-year-old canvas, he felt like he was looking into a mirror. Sadly, Max left his bright red spandex at home that day, but the resemblance was still pretty uncanny. Max isn't the only person who's discovered their look-alike in a museum. This guy found his double in New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art, as he discovered a portrait from 1884 that showed a man that shared his facial features and hairstyle. Another museum goer took it really old school after finding their doppelganger in the form of a statue recreating a child caveman. Similarly, this fellow found an uncanny resemblance in a centuries-old statue of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, certainly a chip off the old block. So if any of these modern-day muses ever lack self-confidence, they can remind themselves that they're literally works of art. Ultimate wingmen. In my experience, all seagulls are good for is stealing sandwiches and pooping on beach towels, but it turns out they aren't all bad. Back in 2018, a seagull decided to make amends for its species' wrongdoings by doing a human a big favor, saving them from a speeding ticket. As the driver soared past the speed camera, triggering it, the guardian gull came to his rescue, flying in front of the camera and blocking the driver's license plate. The odds of the gull blocking the camera at the moment the photo was taken are incredibly small. But unbelievably, this isn't the first time a speeding driver's been saved by a bird. This driver was saved from a speeding fine by a much smaller bird that flew by at the perfect time to cover up his plate. When the image was posted onto Reddit, the critter was identified as an Indian myna from Australia, and Redditors praised the airborne Aussie for preventing the driver from receiving a fine and making sure he had a real good eye, mate. Accurate artillery. Let's move from those speeding cars to a vehicle that's slightly heavier duty. Using a military tank for precision sniping might sound insane, but in World War II, a tank crewman did just that by pulling off this incredible shot while out on the battlefield. This image shows the moment that a German Tiger I tank was disarmed after an Allied tank shot an armor-piercing round straight through its barrel. The chances of hitting this shot are truly 1,000,000 to 1. However, it probably wasn't intentional. The tank crewman was almost definitely aiming for the Tiger I's body. The unbelievable shot may have been accidental, but for the crew of the Tiger I, the misfire was likely a life-saving mistake. And I think they owe the Allied troops a "thank you" note. I'll see myself out. Buzzing bodyguard. With war and politics constantly at the forefront of the news, it's easy to feel like humankind is completely divided. However, there is one thing that can unite almost everyone on Earth: a deep hatred for mosquitoes. Skeeters are arguably humankind's arch-enemy, and unsurprisingly, some members of the animal kingdom aren't so keen on them either. This shared hatred acts as a real bond between man and beast, and in 2018, the connection came to a Redditor's advantage after a dragonfly landed on his hand and ate a mosquito that was just about to bite him. The way that Redditor's buzzing bodyguard ate the mosquito before it had a chance to hurt his client required some incredibly coincidental timing. And the next time the summer months roll around, you can forget about nets and insect spray. Just buy yourself a pet dragonfly. Hitching a ride. When I first learned to drive, my mom gave me two things: a set of fluffy pink dice and a stern warning to never pick up hitchhikers. Hitchhikers often get a reputation as madmen and vagrants. However, there are some exceptions to my dear old mom's rule. And back in 2021, Jocelyn Anderson snapped a photo of a pretty cute hitchhiker catching a ride. This little bird is a red-winged blackbird, a North American species that's known for being aggressive and territorial around its nests and chicks. Apparently, when this osprey, seemingly carrying a stick for its own nest, flew too close to the blackbird's home, the little bird attempted to fight it off, chasing after the predator. The blackbird got close enough to land on the osprey's stick, tagging along for a while to make sure it flew far away from its babies. Despite the size difference between the birds, the blackbird definitely won the fight, proving that in this David and Goliath story, nothing is bigger than a mother's love. Deja Sue. Whether it's their eye color or favorite sports team, children can inherit lots of different characteristics from their parents. Spotting your traits in your child must be a pretty wholesome experience, but unfortunately, passing an attribute to your kid isn't always a good thing, especially if that trait is a tendency to fall helplessly into large bodies of water. Back in 1988, a man called Su Weifang heard a commotion from the river beside his house in Jiangsu, China. He ran outside to find a child on the brink of drowning in the river, prompting him to dive into the water to save the kid's life, before sending him home to his parents. For most of us, this would be heroism for a lifetime, but Su's work wasn't done. 30 years later, in 2018, a now 80-year-old Su experienced a terrifying case of déjà vu. After heading into his garden and discovering another 8-year-old kid fighting for his life in the river. Despite his now advanced years, Su managed to save the kid, dragging him out of the water before calling an ambulance. The next day, Su decided to visit the kid in the hospital to make sure he was okay. And when he arrived and asked for the child's name, he made an insane discovery. The 8-year-old was the son of the boy whose life he saved 30 years earlier. It turns out brave yet somewhat unskilled swimming runs in the boy's family, and Su's heroism had saved 2 generations from the same fate. I guess the apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. It's just a shame those apples keep falling in Su's river. Repaying the favor. Saving 2 kids from drowning takes an incredible amount of bravery, but Su isn't the only hero out there. And for a pediatrician like Dr. Michael Shannon from Orange County, California, saving a life is all part of the job. Heading to work and treating sick kids sounds like an incredibly rewarding profession. But for Dr. Shannon, saving children's lives has provided even richer rewards than fulfillment at work. After one of his former patients grew up to repay the favor. Let me explain. In 1981, Dr. Shannon saved the life of a 3.2-pound premature baby called Chris Trokey, working around the clock to stabilize the child and ensure he survived a chaotic birth. For Dr. Shannon, this was just another day at the office, and he soon forgot about Chris, until they met again 30 years later. In 2011, Dr. Shannon was cruising down the highway when he was involved in a serious car accident. Shannon's chances of survival looked slim. But luckily, the emergency services soon arrived, and a paramedic was able to cut the doctor out of the car and drag him to safety. Shannon spent over a month recuperating in hospital, and during the stay, the paramedic that saved him came to visit, introducing himself as none other than Chris Trokey, the baby that Shannon had delivered 30 years earlier. The paramedic had discovered that the man he saved was Dr. Shannon soon after the accident, and it seems Chris's grateful parents had made sure their son never forgot the name of the man who'd given Chris a shot at life. Both Chris and Dr. Shannon were in shock as they realized that Chris had finally repaid a 30-year favor by rescuing the man that saved his own life. After bonding over their shared heroism, Chris and Shannon struck up a friendship. And today, Dr. Shannon continues to work as a pediatrician, even for Chris's own newborn son. I wonder if that kid will grow up to save Dr. Shannon's life in some way too. Dominican doppelganger. From pigeon people to scuba diving security guards, when you open Google Maps and head down to Street View, you never know what you'll find on the world's roads and sidewalks. In 2020, American Twitch streamer Simcopter discovered this firsthand after finding something unbelievable on Google Maps: his doppelganger.
What? Bro.
Simcopter streams a lot of different games on Twitch, and back in 2020, he was playing GeoGuessr, a popular game that places you in a random part of the world on Street View before asking you to use your surroundings to figure out where you are. As Simcopter was dropped onto a busy street in a random city, he started looking for road signs and buildings that could help him identify his location. Instead, he immediately stumbled upon his doppelganger, crossing a road sporting similar clothes and facial hair to Simcopter's own. Simcopter was shocked by the discovery, and when he made his location guess and pulled up the world map, the game revealed that his look-alike lives in a town in the Dominican Republic. Considering GeoGuessr can place you down anywhere on the planet, the chances of stumbling across your look-alike are incredibly small, let alone a look-alike wearing the same outfit as you on a particular day, making Simcopter's discovery a pretty unbelievable coincidence. To think, most liberal arts students travel all the way to Southeast Asia to find themselves. All Simcopter has to do is catch a flight to the Caribbean. Carmex clothing. With wardrobe malfunctions and ever-changing trends, the world of fashion can be a pretty intense place. As you can see, I avoid all these pressures by walking around naked. But most folks don't have that option. And in 2019, Twitter user @PositiveHar caught her friend making a fashion faux pas after accidentally dressing up like a tube of lip balm.
It's just about right. Just about right.
As PositiveHar and her friend got dressed up to leave the house, she realized that her buddy's yellow dress and red hair closely resembled the tube of Carmex in her bag. The resemblance was uncanny, and although lip balm's made to soften your lips, I'm sure PositiveHar's friend's lips had a few rough words to say after the unfortunate clip went viral. It's in the name. If you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, they'll usually tell you that they aspire to become something like an astronaut, a doctor, or a famous athlete. But unfortunately, some kids' career paths are seemingly already predetermined by, of all things, their names. In 1994, a journalist for New Scientist magazine came up with the concept called nominative determinism. This is the hypothesis that people tend to gravitate towards jobs that relate to their names. Take the neurologist Lord Russell Brain, or the world's fastest man, Usain Bolt. Or how about this fireman called Lieutenant Les McBurney, and this chef called Tom Kitchen. There are also examples of anti-nominative determinism, when people end up working in jobs that directly contradict their names. For example, Philadelphia's Commissioner of Police, Danielle Outlaw, or a famous archbishop in the Philippines called Cardinal Sin. Since the term was coined in 1994, researchers have found countless examples of the phenomenon, while questioning whether the effects is a case of coincidence or subconscious decision-making. The former Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, Igor Judge, has stated that he thinks the link between his name and his profession is completely coincidental. In contrast, a New York lawyer called Sue Yu remembers people jokingly telling her to become a lawyer throughout her life. She never dreamt of going into law as a kid and believes that a lifetime of comments about her name could have eventually pushed her to pursue a career as a lawyer. With those conflicting accounts, it's still impossible to say whether nominative determinism is a case of causation or coincidence. But when you hear about a professional poker player called Chris Moneymaker, a real estate agent called Corey Greathouse, and a vasectomy specialist called Dick Chop, it feels like some people are truly born to work in their chosen profession. Household names. For some A-list celebrities, their name is an entire brand, attached to business ventures like designer perfumes and makeup lines. As a result, we're used to seeing these household names appear on billboards and TV adverts. But sometimes, even the most famous names can pop up in places that are totally unexpected. Celebrities like Taylor Swift are usually associated with private jets and limousines, so seeing her name emblazoned on these dusty trucks was a pretty surprising sight. Of course, Taylor Swift hasn't actually expanded her brand out into the truck logistics industry. The way the logos on the trucks lined up to create the singer's name is a pretty crazy coincidence, but she isn't the only famous name that has appeared in an unlikely location. Usually the names Mario and Luigi are associated with superpowered mushrooms, but these coincidentally named establishments in Manchester, England only serve loaves of bread and kebabs. The two buildings garnered a lot of attention for their names, and after these images went viral online, lots of people rushed to see the hilarious coincidence for themselves. Unfortunately, before you say, "Let's go!" and book a flight to Manchester, you should know that the free publicity didn't create any brotherly love between the buildings, and by 2016, both establishments had changed their names. Mamma mia, what a shame. Captive Cow. Mario and Luigi are some of the most famous video game characters of all time, and aside from those restaurants in Manchester, the brothers have influenced Halloween costumes, statues, and this water buffalo, who seemingly tried to emulate the Italian plumbers by jumping into a drain pipe. Unfortunately, the pipe didn't lead to Peach's castle, and as the buffalo fell inside the drain, it got trapped, with its horns wedged on either side of the gap. The buffalo fit into the ditch perfectly, leaving it sitting upright with its head sticking out of the hole. The critter was unable to move, but this tight fit turned out to be a pretty lucky coincidence, because when a group of people stumbled across the trapped buffalo, they were able to quite literally grab the bull by the horns and use some rope to save the perfectly wedged bovine. An athletic illusion. I might look like a big white blob, but I actually used to be quite the athlete, and I could have gone pro if it wasn't for my bum knee. Sporting injuries have forced thousands of athletes into retirement, and in the world of track and field, few sports are more dangerous than the javelin throw, an activity that literally involves throwing a spear as far as you can. A lot can go wrong at a javelin event, and when this image went viral back in 2022, lots of horrified netizens were convinced they'd witnessed a terrible sports injury. But before you throw up your lunch, you should know that this is actually an illusion. While it might look like the javelin is passing straight through Estonian javelin thrower Magnus Kurt's face, this visual is actually caused by a shadow running across the athlete's cheek. The way the shadow extends out into his face is an incredible coincidence of perfect photographic timing. And if Magnus ever gets bored of athletics, I think he should start a career as an illusionist. Comic coincidences. Every superhero needs a villain. In the world of comic books, there's no rivalry bigger than the one between Marvel and DC. The publishers have fought for the superhero top spot since the 1930s, but coincidentally, both companies have incredibly similar origins, and some of their biggest superheroes have their roots in the same New York high school. DeWitt Clinton High School in New York boasts a long list of notable alumni, including Marvel's late creative leader, Stan Lee, and the co-creators of Batman, Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Finger and Kane both graduated in the class of 1933, while Stan Lee graduated in 1939, giving DeWitt's art department a decade with some of the most influential comic book artists of all time. This coincidence is pretty insane. However, DeWitt is a giant school, with some individual graduating classes in the mid-20th century holding up to a mind-boggling 900 students, and as many as 12,000 total students in the 1930s. With that number of students, it makes sense that there'd be several success stories. However, it's still pretty crazy that some of the most crucial individuals behind the development of two of the world's most popular heroes, Batman and Spider-Man, went to school together. Anyone want to sign my petition to make superhero costumes the compulsory uniform for students at DeWitt Clinton? And that's all the crazy coincidences we've got time for today. Have you ever encountered any strange, hilarious, or downright unbelievable coincidences of your own? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.